Hey, this is Matt. I'm back again with another video on how to replace the input shaft bearing and repair or modify the first and second gear synchronizers in a 2000 to 2006 Honda Insight transmission. So in this video, I'm going to take it all apart and replace the bearing, and then also show you how to modify the synchronizers so you don't have to go out and buy those. The community who have been driving these for years testify that this is a tried and true method. I've done it on one other transmission and it worked beautifully. It seems a little weird, but yeah, I'll show you how to do it and put it all together, and hopefully this helps you guys do this on your own. This will be the second transmission I've done. Before that, I had never taken apart a transmission. I'm not a certified mechanic, but I was able to do it myself, and I think that most probably more advanced, moderate to advanced do-it-yourselfers could do this, pretty easily. So you guys can be the judge after you watch it. All right. All right. So the first step is to remove these 3 bolts. These are the set screws. So underneath each of these screws is a spring and then a ball bearing. So spring, ball bearing, and bolt. So when you store these little guys, you can put the ball bearing in here and then slide the spring in there. And that'll kind of keep everything secure. All right, next up is the lever assembly. So we gotta take off this assembly. It's a 10mm. So that little piece has got to come off because there's a bolt underneath there. So I'll just loosely put that one back in and this one back in. You can tell that those go there because they're shorter. And I pressure wash this entire unit because they can get kind of greasy and stuff, so that's why it's fairly clean. So this one's a little tight, so I'm gonna grab a little hammer here, a little tap. There you go. Okay, so it was in gear, so you got to get it in probably neutral, I assume. So I just had to move this, and then it slipped right out. So if you take a peek down inside here, you can see that it needs to slide out of those, little grooves and crannies and stuff. So that's why it wasn't coming out right away. So next up are these 12mm bolts all the way around. This is what's holding on this casing. So we got to remove 14 of these bolts. So next up is this cap up here. Underneath this cap is a circlip that clamps onto the end of the shaft inside, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but that's got to come off, and you just get a wrench in there, and I'm going to hit this end, and it should knock it loose. Alright, so there's that. That fits in there perfectly. So this is one of the most difficult parts of the entire job. Let's see if we can see in there. So, yes, so there's the end of the clip. That clip has to be released in order for this whole case to lift off. It'd be a lot easier with two people. I'll try to get started with one. I might have a friend help me lift it off, so we'll give it a try. I'll show you what I got here. So these are channel lock. As you squeeze, the other end opens up, and these will work great to get in here and spread this apart. And then second, there's this little notch right here by the starter. You can get a pry bar in here, and you can pry it loose. So the case is split. Now we just gotta spread this clip apart and lift at the same time. So I am actually gonna get a friend to help me with this. So inside here, see if we can catch this. So this is what you're trying to do. Spread those little guys apart there, okay? Okay.
Nice. Okay.
Now we got that loose. Okay. It's back. All right. So now, oh, it's already loose. I think it should lift up. There we go. Nice.
Nice.
That was way easier. Yeah, I can just set it up there. Perfect. So there's all the gears inside. So I had a little bit of trouble. All along here is some sealant. So I would break that seal loose all the way around before you go ahead and try to release that clip from around here. Or actually right here. So it goes around the end there. All right. So next up is removing the reverse gear and this little shaft. And always want to, replace it how you found it. So I'm going to, put this right back, just like this, onto the table back here. So this is all kind of like a puzzle in here, and we'll pretty much go back together only one way, at least one way that works. So you really got to pay attention and be careful, take pictures follow my video along the way. So next up is this shift fork, reverse shift fork. So we're gonna take this off. So that piece will be a little kind of difficult to fit back in there, but if you see, there's like these little pins that stick out from these sides, these levers, and those pins slide into specific spots on that little shifter. So again, just take your time and you should be able to get through this. So next you got to replace or remove this little gutter. And then next up is we got to lift this entire assembly up as one unit. And this is a little tricky as well, but you can do it with one person. I'm going to set it in this box. So I guess it did come out separately, but I thought it had to come out together. But yeah, there you go. So we got both of those removed. Here, let's see, yeah, you can see this. So on top of here is this washer. So you gotta make sure that you don't forget that. Oh, there's two of them, two washers on top of that bearing. Next up is removing this big gear. I already got it a little bit loose. So there's a CV axle seal on that end that will be replaced, and then there's a CV axle seal on that end that will replace as well. Alright, so now in order to modify the synchronizers, we got to work on this counter shaft. This counter shaft, first of all, has to be disassembled beginning with that nut. That nut is about a 30mm nut. It's a little loose, so I'll see what I have in my drawers. But you gotta pound that little indentation out first. It is reverse threaded, so keep that in mind. I'll see if my impact wrench can take it off. I might need to put this in a vise. We'll see. Alright, so let's see if we can get this spread apart. That should be good enough. And then this is a 1 3/16 socket, and that does fit pretty good. So we're going to give that a try. And remember, this is reverse threaded. So, no vise needed. Came right off. Oops, reverse threaded. Alright, I got my gear puller all assembled. I don't know if you can see it there with the tie-dye shirt, but I'll give this a go. So, gear puller assembled. I'm going to tighten this. It's going to pull this whole assembly forward. And then I believe these gears should slip off, if I remember correctly. We'll find out. Okay, so those came off pretty easily. Remember, we got to keep everything assembled how they came off. So I'm going to stack those gears on top of one another, this side on the bottom, so I remember exactly how these things came off, and then go back on. So just like that. Alright, so I don't know if you saw that or heard it, but I just tapped this end on the piece of wood down there, and this slid right off, so pretty easy there. So this is where things get real tricky, so you gotta really pay attention. So this gear comes off. This one is a little more complicated. And let's see if I can get it back together properly. So now here's second gear synchro and first gear synchro. So this one's bottom, this one's top. So if you see this, there's 3 tabs right there. I'm going to grind those off. And those tabs, what's happening is they run into, let's see, so there's these slots that they slide into. And when you try to shift, those tabs are running into those slots. And so if you remove the tabs, it will never grind again, and the functionality does not change. So I'm not sure why Honda decided to do it that way, but they did, and I'm going to fix their problem. There's these little notches down here that slide into these notches over here. I'll get a close up here for you. Yeah, there you go. You can see where it's grinding into. So this is just a Dremel. We'll see how this works here. I've used it before, but it wasn't extremely fast, so I'll give it a go again. All right, so this one is done. No more tabs, no more grinding. So the next thing you'll want to do is clean out that dust, all those shavings. So I just have an old toothbrush here. All right, next up is that other synchronizer. So we'll get those tabs grinded off, and then we'll be all done with the synchronizers. All right, next up is to reassemble this assembly. So now, when they come together, where those tabs used to be, we're not going to get that grinding anymore because they don't exist. Okay, so one like that. And this side like that. All right, next up is to reassemble since we have the tabs ground off. All right, let's try this again. Okay, yeah, so now that's gonna fit down inside of here much better. All right, so these tiny little teeth on this other gear go down like so. And then there's these tiny little bumps. Yeah, you can see them there. Need to fit down into these little grooves here, inside here. So, should be like this. There we go. Okay, that's much better. So now this will go all the way to the top. Free spin. This spins the whole shaft. This is spinning with it too. And we go down here. That's free spins. That spins the whole thing. But yeah, that's how it goes. Okay. This on top. And looks like that needs to be Right, put it on there. Alright, last gear goes on. Alright, now it's time to pound the bearings back on. Washer. And then the nut, which is reverse threaded. So we need to get that yellow mark back to where that notch is. Got that notched in. So that's all done. It's working like it should. Alright, next up is getting this input shaft bearing out and then also replacing the seal behind it. And then if you look closely here, there's a bunch of little bearings that are loose, and so we got to secure those. So I'm just going to pack that area with a rubber glove, and then I'll get this remaining oil out of there, and then we will go after this input shaft bearing. The clutch side, and I'm going to use this long screwdriver, and I'm going to go around the outer, or I guess inner edge, and try to tap it out, you know, kind of like this. So we'll give it a try and see how it works. Pop her out. So pretty easy. Does not require anything special. So there we go. So that bearing is out, and then that seal is right in there. So I'm going to replace that seal next. Alright, so now I'm going to try to dig that seal out. But you got to be careful not to score or scratch the surfaces. So that popped out pretty easily. So then we got to clean this out. Preparation for the new seal. So here's the new seal. It's a Timken brand. It's pre-greased. And so we'll get that in there. So I'm going to set the old bearing on top of the new bearing, and I'm going to use that as my driving end tool. Nice and quiet. The other one was pretty loud. Alright, so that is all set. That really is the completion of the whole project. Synchronizers were modified, input shaft bearing replaced, input shaft seal replaced. I've got these seals, actual seals yet, but those are pretty easy, so we'll get those replaced and then reassembled. Alright, so I'm going to pound this out. This kind of the same method, screwdriver on the outer edge. It doesn't have a tip on there. Right. So these seals are unique to each side. So when you replace it, you gotta make sure they look the same. We'll use the old seal, just like we did the last time. That side's all done. So handle this seal the same way. Pound it from the inside out. Alright, I got that side in nice and flush. So the seals are done, bearings done, synchronizers are done. Now it's time to reassemble. So the next step is to reassemble, but I do need to make sure the surface is clean because I will need to add some new RTV. So I'm going to go around scraping that and then make sure it's nice and clean and smooth, and then we'll reassemble. And then we can't forget this little rubber glove we put in there. Alright, so now we got to put this big gear back into place. So this next part is a pretty hard part. This is where we're going to grab these, and you really are supposed to lift it and return it back in one assembly. I was able to separate it. I don't remember or know how, but it is supposed to be in one assembly. So we're gonna give this a try. Remember, your two washers go on top of the input shaft bearing. I'm gonna try to put this in here first, just so I can get things lined up. Let's see what happens here. Okay. I think we're set. Alright, next up is this little gear assembly. And remember, there's little slots for this and notches for them to fit together perfectly. Yep, there we go. So you can't really screw that part up. So these bolts are 11 foot-pounds. This other part of the bracket. Yeah, it can only go a certain way. Okay. And these are also 11 foot-pounds. This is the idler gear. There we go. So next up is the gutter guard, and that actually mounts on the other side. There's these little tabs or pins that go into those little slots. And they press in there pretty hard, so that's how that goes in there. So I gotta clean this side as well. And the last surface to clean will be this shifter housing area. Alright, next up is resealing the surface. So this is ultra gray. It's what was recommended. So we gotta go around the entire surface, around each bolt hole. So next up is putting this housing back on. So I'm running out of storage, so I missed recording what I did to get this on. But basically you set it on top of here and you need to pound it down, and you need to spread apart that ring again, that snap ring. And once you spread it apart and pound it down, it will stay spread, but it won't be snapped in. And so the next step you have to do is turn this unit upside down and kind of tap it onto the floor, and this whole shaft assembly falls down and snaps into that ring. So it's kind of tricky to do, but that's exactly what I did. And now you can see in there it's secure and snapped in there. So yeah. Next up is snugging these. all these bolts, and we don't torque them yet. We just get them finger tight, and then you wait for 1 hour, and then you go back around and you torque it to the torque specifications, which are 20 foot-pounds. Yeah, 20 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with those, and then I'll finish that, and then the last step is to install the shifter housing. And there is a certain sequence to secure this, and so I'll go through that sequence as I tighten these down. So the first bolt is this one here. It's number 1. Bolt 2 is here. Now back up here. And then 4. 5 is actually associated with this bracket and goes up here. And 6 is back next to number 2. 7. 8 is next to 4. 9 is back at that supporting bracket. 10 is over here. 11.
You gotta torque these the same sequence pattern that you'll use.
12. 13.
And then the last one will be 14 on the opposite side.
So that completes that sequence. All right, while those are, while this is still drying, I'm gonna go ahead and add the sealant to the shifter housing and get that assembled. Before you assemble it or try to slide it inside, look down inside the hole, and you'll see like the shift forks. I think that's what they're called, and they have to be aligned, and then that'll slide right in. If it's not aligned, it'll keep jamming. That's what was happening earlier to me. So get it aligned, slide it right in, and now you can kind of test it out if you want. There's reverse. So shifts perfectly fine. So we should be all set. Last thing to do now is just torque all the bolts down. All right, before I torque everything down, I'm gonna go ahead and get this one installed. So this plug is 18 foot-pounds. All right, let's get these torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. Before I torque this down, I'm going to go ahead and install these detent bolts. Remember, the ball bearing is inside if you followed my directions. So that goes in first, then the spring. So 16 foot-pounds. And last but not least are these bolts here, and these are 8.7 foot-pounds. And then we got this little bracket, and then we are all done. All right, so that is how you repair or modify the synchronizers. That's how you replace the input shaft bearing, the input shaft seal, the axle seals, how you take it apart, how you reassemble it. I didn't really leave anything out, so if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, and I'll do my best to help you out. Hopefully this will help others save money, because it's totally doable by you know, I'm not a certified mechanic. I've just learned as I've gone, and I think you could too. So give it a try. Again, this is for the 2000 to 2006 Honda Insight transmission. All right, well, thank you for watching, and I appreciate any comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you like this video, and I will have some more coming out. All right, thank you. Bye.